Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Out of the Park 23 as the Minnesota Twins. And we are at the beginning of July. So I'm changing up a little bit when I'm doing kind of my partway through the season updates. I don't think going through as much of the draft is as useful anymore. I'll go over who I actually picked in the draft, but we'll go ahead from there. So we're off to a pretty good start this year. We're 54-30. The Brewers have kind of kept up with us for a while, but they went on a little bit of a downturn. They're still 3 games up in the wild card, so we might actually have a division mate in the playoffs this year. That would be fun to see. So as far as how the team is doing, this bullpen ERA of 2.5 is actually up from where it was in June. There was a point in mid-June where this team had 4 relievers that had ERAs below 0.5, which is just insane. Nunez, Mazzucato, Medeiros, and White, or not Medeiros, Nardi, White, Nunez, and Mazzucato all had ERAs of below 0.5 in the middle of June, which was just crazy. But yeah, pitching's been good, hitting's been up and down. Sort of been the story of this franchise for the last couple of years. So if we go into pitching, just all of the bullpen arms have all been really good. Not a whole lot to say there. Klassen is a interesting choice for me pretty soon here. He was bad as a reliever, 7.65 ERA, FIP not much better. As a starter, he's been very up and down. He's had 3 starts, 1 run or less, and 2 starts with 4+. So that kind of becomes a little bit iffy. The FIP is high in both spots. He's in the starting rotation now because of an injury to Weissman, who I don't know why he made this random relief outing, but I want him to make at least 1 start. It wasn't a huge injury, but it was a left elbow one, so I don't want to rush him back. Maybe I'll have him make 2 starts, actually. We'll kind of see there. But that's sort of the situation with pitching. Mostly pretty good. So Correa is a funny story. Just the ratings just are continuing to tank. So he finished his first stint on the 60-day IL. I send him to St. Paul. He gets 1 at-bat and re-injures himself. Is he direct yet? I'm a little surprised his injury proneness is not direct. But yeah, that's just kind of a problem at this point. He's obviously just completely unplayable. So I think that realistically, once I stop being able to abuse this injured list stuff, then he's just going to get released and I'll eat the money. Because I just don't see a world in which I can play him at all. So that's obviously a problem there. One other funny thing that's happened lineup-wise is Alex Kirilloff has been suspended twice. He got suspended for like 4 or 5 games for fighting, was back for like 2 games, then got suspended again. So that was interesting. As far as kind of how we've been doing, Hunt is having a very bad season. Still a 1.2 WAR player hitting 66 OPS plus. Shows the glove is still there. If the rest of my bats were doing better, it would be less of a problem. But yeah, it's obviously not super great to have him be struggling to this extent. Cabrera is very much just a platoon bat at this point. I was hoping that with how well he was hitting lefties last year and this year, the fact that he hit righties okay last year, but just has absolutely not been able to repeat that. We're looking at an arbitration number that I don't think I'm going to be able to justify going into next year. So I think there's a good chance that this will be his last year with the team. Kirilloff is starting to pick it up a little bit. Didn't get off to a very good start, but his June was pretty good, so I'm hoping that's a sign that he will be kind of back on track. We still have this year plus 1 more. He's still not tradable. So, yeah, that's sort of where we're at with him. Miranda, still continuing to basically just be Jose Miranda. $19 or $18 million team option for him next year. We'll sort of see where we're at with first base options going into next year. Um, there's potentially, even with sort of an outfield glut I'm starting to get, that maybe I let him walk. I have Kirilloff play first, and I use some of my outfielders to kind of rotate through designated hitter. So that's potentially an option. We'll see. But he's been doing exactly what he always does. Jonathan Mejia's been okay at the major league level. He's continued to hit really well in AAA. I guess he was only okay this year. But he's fragile. He is up because Collier has really struggled. Arroyo hasn't been good either. So trying to figure out that spot hasn't been great. Specifically in this versus right-handers situation, because versus lefties I've been fine with going with Cabrera at third, Ayers at second, because Ayers has been playing super well since he came back. He's already put up 1.5 WARs, very good defensively at third. I think what I would like to do kind of for the long term is find a new second baseman or shortstop, honestly. So I'm fine playing Royce at either one of the up the middle spots because he's been above average defensively at short as well. So that's sort of what we're going to try to find, is a second base solution. I don't know that it's going to be Mejia, but he'll always get a shot for the rest of this year. Probably he'll bounce back and forth if Collier gets himself back on track. Arroyo's been very bad defensively, or offensively, but defensively he's done kind of what we want him to do. So I'm as much as I'd like this bat to be better, he's a defense first guy. So we kind of are getting what I'm expecting out of him. Royce is doing Rice things. Mario Adrian's a beast. Luis Lara has been really good. The issue is that the bat's starting to fall off a little bit. Because he had really good April and May. June was kind of league average, which honestly I'll take because he's a good defensive center fielder in theory, but he hasn't really been that good this year. So that kind of creates question marks. Ramos has been pretty good. But the thing down here is Edgar Lazcano has already put up 4.5 WAR in St. Paul. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that his center field's a 60, because I think, isn't Lara 65? Yeah, he's 65 with lower arm and the same range and error, so that's a little odd. But his fielding stats obviously are outstanding in center field. But it's 2.7 range factor. It's 2.37. I'm not sure if this is like a cumulative thing or if this is a relative thing. I'll have to look into that a little bit. But like, I don't want to call up Lazcano to have him be Ramos. Especially when Ramos has been hitting fine. Like, really can't complain about this type of stats. Obviously, the fielding's not going to be great for him. So maybe we call him up and we just kind of pull more time from the others. Like, especially Baez against righties, we could probably reduce a little bit. But, I mean, he's having such a good year. Like, I don't really want to pull from any of them, and I want Lazcano playing every day. So that's sort of what's going on there, especially at the point when all these outfielders have been doing well. Arenello didn't hit at all when he was up. So really that's sort of what's going on within the roster. We haven't had to make a ton of changes. Well, there is this, I guess, to talk about. Byron Buxton, again, is going to miss another season to play 60 games his last 2 years. So really we're looking at kind of in this big old career of his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times where he played 100 games over the span of, we call this 14 seasons, another half a season here. So obviously the 162 average is really good, but we just never got that. Only ever gets to 28 career WAR, even with a 162 average of 4 WAR. Little unfortunate to see that really the injuries ended up being the story, and that this $18 million ends up unfortunately sort of doing what I thought it was going to do. So that's unfortunate that the career kind of ends here for Buxton. I would not be surprised at all if he retires, but I'm not going to bring him back, obviously, at this point. So, as far as some of the other stuff that has happened, let's see. Well, first off, there was this guy in the draft. This was not somebody that I was able to draft because he went before me. But you'll notice pretty good pitcher, 75 potential. But then this caught my eye as well. He's just also a super good hitter. So I mean, we just have Shohei back. So that'll be interesting to see. I don't remember who that team actually is, but I'm gonna keep an eye on that guy to see if he actually turns into another Shohei Ohtani. So to go over our draft picks. Actually, I guess before that, we can talk about this guy that we signed as our international free agent. We were able to get one of the pitchers this time. Where obviously, if this guy actually develops, he's a superstar. 80, 70, 70 if he gets the 3 pitches and 70 stamina. So we'll kind of see what ends up actually going on with him. But because I haven't really been able to get a pitcher from the international free agent, so I'm curious to see how often these guys actually fully develop. But I think that there's a pretty good chance he at least gets 2 pitches and can be a really good reliever. If the movement control do develop, then he could be a Duran type. But we'll see what actually ends up happening with him. And that's not even the only guy, that big pitcher we got. We also got a scouting discovery of this guy, Alex Aviles, who is, again, a pretty similar type of guy. Maybe slightly worse overall, but again, you need the 3 pitches to all develop, and it's high upside. He's a lefty as well, so that'll be interesting. A couple of really good young international complex arms to see kind of how they end up developing. But to go over the draft, kind of right here, let's see, where's my draft stuff? All right. So this draft actually went pretty well, I think, for us. So this was our first round pick, was this guy, Omar Isaacs. I mean, it's, again, a pretty similar type of profile to what we've seen with some of those international guys, except it's 4 pitches here, which means 1 doesn't have to develop for him to still be okay. High work ethic, low greed. Off to a really good start in rookie ball. Good pitcher. So then Avery Joyner was a guy that I was not expecting to still be here in the second round. That'll be a trend when I talk about these guys. But 65 infield range means he's probably a better second baseman than shortstop, but should at least be a viable shortstop. A decent enough hitter to the point where if this guy does kind of fully develop, he's probably not going to be that super expensive guy, but should be a very usable piece. And then Jordan Salinas, 3rd round pick, 80 potential. I didn't want to grab this guy in the first round. A couple reasons. Low intelligence. You need the changeup to develop. Where I think this is it's a riskier profile to me than Isaac's, but again, super high upside. And then this guy was still available in the 4th round, which, again, I think is kind of crazy because he's not really a catcher. He's much more of a first baseman, but 75 contact, 70 home run power. You take that in a bat where if he's just a DH, that's fine too. And then we kind of start getting into just kind of a couple tools. Obviously, this is just a potential big bat in the corners. But yeah, that was the draft. I think it fell pretty well for us overall. So that was nice to see. I think the team's in a really good spot. We look at the manager's office with the goals. So money is obviously kind of a question mark, but we're doing really well. We're stealing a lot of bases. I moved Lara to be more aggressive on that. He's on pace to steal quite a few bases, especially if he keeps getting on base. That 356 mark. Stolen 20 already. Might get to 40 stolen bases. So yeah, that's been good. We'll have to figure out budget wise. We might end up doing more with that next year. If we kind of look at the salaries, because like we could, not re-sign him. Gutierrez, I don't know what we'll do here. I think more than likely we'll let him walk. He's struggled this year. Wasn't super great last year either. So, and he doesn't have lead or anything like that. Like Prankster's fine, but it's not anything super important. Cabrera's likely gone at that number. Zach Green is also probably gone coming off of the couple of injuries. Then we'll have some decisions to make down here. Obviously, Sanchez is signed for a while. So, yeah, we might see some of this kind of original group start to move away. I'm really not sure what we're going to end up doing with Miranda in the offseason. We're one more year of Kirilov, and hopefully Correa retires and this $35 million just comes off the books. That would be really nice. I don't know whether releasing him here, what that would do for the option. I might have to do some research into that, because if he can't pick up the option if he's released, then I need to just be cutting him. So if you guys know, say something in the comments. That would be useful. But other than that, I think there's not really a whole lot else to talk about. I mean, the owner's still happy. One owner related thing that did happen was that Steve Cohen passed away in this game, and his kid took over. It seems like he's a more controlling type than the elder Cohen, so it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening there. Yeah, this must be why he said something about that, because yeah, we lost money last year, even with making $281 million in revenues. So yeah, that'll be something I'll have to figure out for next season. Tyler Ayers is looking like a potential extension candidate as well. Or if I could get him maybe, like a 6-year where it goes up to like 15, something like that. I did offer him a contract that he's probably going to turn down at this point, of something like 2.6 for just next year. Where if he does end up turning that down, I might look to get him on maybe like a 6-year deal, something like that. Because I think that the defensive profile makes him pretty viable at third base, even if the bat doesn't really stay at the rate it has. Because obviously he didn't hit super well this year, and it's not a huge sample size at the major league level this year. But pretty much everywhere he's been, other than the majors last year, the age of 23, he's hit really well. So I think we are going to look to extend him. We'll see what happens all-star wise for us in the next episode. I think we've got a couple pretty good shots. I think Atrian will be an all-star forever, pretty much, as long as he stays healthy. And he's durable, so he's got the extremely popular. He's crazy good bat. And honestly, even these defensive ratings have been slowly going up. So like he's positive zone rating for me. The eye is steadily climbed up as well. So like the on-base percentage right now is 390. So I mean, really, just this is. I think there's a pretty decent argument that he's the best player in baseball at this point. And that's fun to see, that a guy you've got locked up for 9 more years is quite possibly the best player in the league. And never paying him more than $21 million in that stage. Because at this point, he's going to be, let's see, so he's 25, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 31, 32. So this would be his age 34 season at this point. So, I mean, obviously, if he's still this type of hitter, then we'll keep extending him. But we'll see. It's fun to have a guy like that around and to really have one of these international free agents really hit, obviously it can be really good for your team. So I think that is it for this episode. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.